Buddy, Paul Alcoholic. I wanted to reiterate, we're looking at the program of recovery from a particular lens, which is the idea that the identification as self, or as the long-lasting independent separate entity, or as the doer, the thinker, the feeler, not the sense of ego, but the sense of the one who has an ego or loses an ego, that sense of self, we're going to look at all the steps from that lens. And it's not AA approved or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just a member's eye view of looking at the whole program from this one particular view of maybe the exact nature of the wrong. So I'm going to read a little today on page 62, the first paragraph. So page 62, the first paragraph. Selfishness, self-centeredness. You're going to notice that self is used in these next few paragraphs quite a lot. It usually comes before a lot of descriptive things like delusion, seeking, pity. Yeah, so it goes selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, self-seeking, and self-pity, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate. Sometimes they hurt us, seemingly without provocation, but we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have made decisions based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So I'm just going to read this and then go back. So it goes, so our troubles, we think, are basically of our own making. They are out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme, they arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible, or the higher power, whatever. And there often seems to no way of entirely getting rid of self without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. We had to have God's help. And then he goes, this is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. Next, we decided that hereafter in this drama of life, God was going to be our director. He is the principal. We are his agents. He is the father, and we are his children. Most good ideas are simple, and this concept was the keystone of the new and triumphant arch through which we passed to freedom. When we sincerely took such a position, the one they just described, all sorts of remarkable things followed. We had a new employer. Being all-powerful, he provided what we needed if we kept close to him and performed his works well. Established on such a footing, we became less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. And as we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind, as we discovered we could face life successfully, as we became conscious of his presence, we began to lose our fear of today, tomorrow, and the hereafter, or the hereafter. We were reborn. So again, using this lens that self is what has defeated us, you can go over this. So basically it says selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think is the root of our troubles. Being driven by 100 forms of fear, self-delusion, all of these are manifestations of self in one's life. Sometimes they hurt us seemingly without provocation, but then it goes, if you investigate, you're going to see that there was a decision based on self, which later placed us in a position to be hurt. So it really wasn't our decision in a way. the decision was based on self. And if you look at the page 64 or 67, where it says, being convinced that self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. So at that point, we have made a decision based on that which has defeated us, which furthers what? The defeat by it. Yeah. So then he goes, so our troubles we think are basically of our own making. Now, from this view of idea of self, I don't see that to be true. I think our troubles are basically of self's making. And I see self as a foreign pathogen or a parasitical movement, or if you want to call it a possession, whatever. But the self, the parasite of self, presents itself to us as us. So there's an act of being identified as the parasite, which sort of neuters our ability to be free from it, because we can't entertain being free from it as it. Yeah. So we're taken over. We're not conscious of being taken over. And where now all our behaviors are becoming based on self, not on what we are, but on what's taken us over. So he goes, they arise out of ourselves. So the problems or the troubles arise out of us, but they don't arise from us. They arise from the self. They arise out of ourselves, but they arise from self. See, this is the thing. This is what changed my life, really, is when I saw that which was being presented as self wasn't me. It's changed the whole reading of the book. I saw everything differently. And the way I saw it made a whole lot of freaking sense, and it's delivered the goods. It's allowed me to travel lighter for many, many years as the action figure Paul, which Paul couldn't produce that. The state couldn't do it. My mother couldn't do it, but something has done it. And it hasn't done it through self. It's done it from self. It's separated the problem from the solution, in a sense, really. So it says, all right, so they arise out of ourselves, and the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. So self's will is running riot, not my will, self's will. Yeah. Though he usually doesn't think so. This is the hypnotism. This is the trance that the parasites puts us in. We don't think so because we think it's us. We have our will combined or taken to be self's will. Above everything, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness. So how is self going to get out of self? Yeah, that's the dilemma. If I'm identified as the source of selfishness, which is self, and I try to get out of the selfishness as the source of it, it's just more selfishness in some form or another. We must, or it kills us. God makes that possible. And there often seems no way of entirely getting rid of self, exactly, without his aid. Many of us had moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we could not live up to them, even though we would have liked to. That sounds like powerlessness, yeah. We'd like to live up to things, but we can't. We don't have the power to do so. Neither could we reduce our self-centeredness much by wishing or trying on our own power. Why? Because that's caught by the statement, self can't get out of self. So if I try to lose interest in self as self, that's more interest in self. So this is, we had to have God's help. This is the how and why of it. First of all, we had to quit playing God. It didn't work. So for me, this is the pivotal point. There's something that's playing God in my life that isn't God. Yeah. It's presenting itself to be me, and it's telling me all about me. It's telling me all about you. It's telling me all about life. It's telling me how it was and how it's going to be. It's constantly playing God. Yeah. And so what happens if I'm identified as that which is playing God, and I'm reading this statement, I have to quit playing God. So that which is playing God sees it has to quit playing God. What is that but playing God? How can what's playing God stop playing God? It can't. That would be playing God. Where's the solution? It's not of that. It's from it. So it says, please, please, relieve me of this bondage of self. The bondage of self is an act of being identified as what you're not. That's the bondage of self. And the thought system is infected with alcoholism. It's infected with self. And it's the system itself is reinforcing and it's promoting its own survival at the expense of our survival. At the expense of our survival. And it is a deadly situation. Like he said there, this is an extremely deadly situation because the parasite isn't going to be made into a service animal. It isn't. It's not going to be rehabilitated. It's not going to befriend your friend. It can't. That's not its nature. Just like the snake, you can be as nice as hell to that snake. It's inevitably going to bite you because it's a snake. So this reading, and then it goes into what happens when we finally take, it tells us the main concept of recovery, which is reliance on this greater power, reliance on the infinite. And it says, when we sincerely took such a position, so we've made a decision to take that position. We've done the steps to allow that position somewhat to be taken. And what happens when we take that position in sincerity, and the sincerity has been demonstrated by the willingness to do 4 through 9, all sorts of remarkable things follow. We could have a Zoom that would last like months of people describing all these remarkable things that have followed after this sincerity took this position. We had a new employer. We talk about this every week. An employer is something that employs you. It uses you. Yeah. Now we know what it was like to be used by an old employer, which is self. Yeah. And then now we have a new employer, and the first and foremost difference is it's all powerful. Yeah. Being all powerful. It doesn't have all power. It's being all powerful. That's its nature. Yeah. So being all powerful, it provided what we needed if we kept close to him. So there's one requirement that's already met. How can you be far from everywhere? You would, like when I was growing up, I went to Catholic school and they would pound away in us these 3 attributes of God, which was that it's omniscient, it's all-knowing, it's omnipotent, it's all-powerful, and it's omnipresent, it's all present, it's present everywhere. So basically that requirement's fulfilled. And then it says, and perform his work well. Yeah. Now, how do you know whose work, is it well or not? Are you listening to your own judgment of it? Hopefully we're taking AA's judgment of it and we're being of service to others, and we're pretty much assured that we're performing its works well while we're doing that. So we fulfilled the requirement to be taken care of. Yeah. And the taking care of isn't really based on us. We fulfilled the one requirement and it's all on the higher power. So it goes more and more we become, it goes here. Established. So now something has changed. So first we sincerely take this position. And as they say in the vision for you, this power is constantly going to give us more information. Well, what happens is it shows us that something's working. So now we get established on such a footing. Yeah. We become less and less interested in ourselves, our little plans and designs. And he uses the word little perfectly, because when self is running the show, all my plans and designs are rather large. Yeah. So our little plans and designs, more and more. In other words, it's going to continue. it progresses. Recovery progresses. More and more, we became interested in seeing what we could contribute to life. As we felt new power flow in, as we enjoyed peace of mind. So there's the peace of mind. It's always been available, but now we have the ability again. It's not like we didn't have the ability, but the ability has been uncovered, and now we can enjoy peace of mind. As we discovered we could face life successfully, well, you know, I remember I always tell a story. The first year of sobriety, you know, I went to my first AA dance, and that was my last AA dance. And in the AA dance, there would be the men's side, and then the women's side would be across the way. And every one of us were probably incapable of having any kind of relationship. So I was drinking a lot of Crystal Geyser, because instead of a beer, I had to have something in my hand. So I was just drinking this, and we were all on the men's side, and we're thinking, who's going to be the first one to go across that minefield and ask a girl to dance? So they basically selected me. And there was a woman that from afar I liked. She had no idea, but I did. And so I decided to take the journey. And so again, because of AA, really, I was willing to take a chance to face rejection. So I walked across that thing. I got to the other side safely. I asked the girl if she wants to dance, and she said no. So suddenly, like the disco ball that was flying, felt like a huge spotlight on me, and I had to walk across this minefield back to the men's side. And you know what? Most of my life, I had tailored never to have this kind of feeling of rejection, and therefore I didn't have much of a life. And yet I felt that, which my head told me it would kill me, and it didn't kill me. I made it back to the other side, and life had just demonstrated itself that I could face it successfully if I just stopped freaking listening to what I'm not. Yeah. So I want to go back to this. So this idea of, so our troubles we think are basically of our own making. I don't believe we're making it, really. I believe we're experiencing it. I believe we're expressing it. I believe we're trying to navigate through it, but I do not believe we're the source of it. I lay that on the idea of self, tell you the truth. And this is a very important point to me, because I see, which is a great way to go, when I get in recovery, I give all praise to that power that's doing it all. But I never stop and really put the blame on what really did all this shit before I got sober. And it's not you, and it's not me. And that has brought me a lot of relief from guilt and shame concerning the behavior that was exhibited while I was under the influence. It's brought me a huge amount of relief, and it's allowed that past not to be shut the door on it or avoided, because I made the amends. I was accountable for those behaviors, but I truly was not responsible for those behaviors. So I don't believe they do arise out of ourselves if you look at self as something foreign. Yeah, I do believe that. They do not arise out of me. They arise out of ourselves. And here it goes. The alcoholic is an extreme example of self-will run riot. Now, if you want to look at self, it's interesting. I once went to a dictionary, and you look up spirit, there's like one definition. Go to self, and then there's a hyphen, and there's about 120 attributes. And if you weigh them, about 90-something of them are, let's say, on the negative side, and maybe 20 are on the positive side, like self-love, self-trust. Then there's self-immolation, self-destruction, self-hate. So self is who would put up with this shit unless we thought it was us? Who would? If I was in a relationship and something brought me all this shit, I would have left that relationship a long time ago. If I was living in a house and this was happening, and it was happening from not me, I would leave. But the thing is, the parasite has neutered that whole possibility because we're identified as it. We're living as a self. And AA sees that as the real root. I mean, they talk about alcohol very little in the steps, really. They see the cause and condition is this idea of self-centeredness. Extreme self-centeredness would be, there must be an incredible identification as a self, to tell you the truth. And that self-reliance is what has failed us. That's why we're in so much anxiety and fear. It's not because of fear, it's because of self-reliance. And if you look at how, if you took reliance to the farthest point that it could go to, that would be identification on that which you're relying on. So I believe the root of the problem is identification as the disease. And actually the real disease, which is self's, the mental state's addiction to self. I think that's the real cause of alcoholism. That's where alcoholism lands. That's where alcoholism adheres to. That's what alcoholism amplifies. The real disease is the addiction to self, I feel. So, I think that's it. I just want to, again, I have, this is just a peculiar view of the steps, and we're trying to stay consistent with it because it's not, self isn't only targeted in the fourth step. You can see it as the root of the problem, the identification as it, yeah? Because you stop drinking and using, yet the self thing continues. Yeah, it was like a speed bump. It went over it, it switched from addiction to sobriety. But that voice that was talking to you before you're sober is still talking to you after you're sober. So I see that as the real addiction, the real disease. So, and thanks for listening.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, so everyone, just we've already got a question up, but just raise your hand, or you can send me a message, and I'll relay you over to Paul. But first is Luke from Birmingham.
Hey Paul, yeah, thanks again, man. Brilliant. I love this this part of the book. It always kind of stood out for me, but hearing you illuminate it further has really kind of woken it back up for me, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. At the end of A Vision for You, it says, abandon yourself to God. And as I was going through that process of abandoning that thing, self, that it told me was the problem, as I was in the steps, doing them, thoroughly and quite rapidly, that was intuitive to me. I got that completely. Abandon yourself, that thing, to God. And then that's how this thing works. The thing is, I think I'm as guilty of this as anyone, but I see a lot of it, that we lose some of that. So when I hear you talk, it's like I know it already, and I'm reminded. I'm like, yeah, of course, that's what I went through. But then it tends to be that people, whatever kind of inertia sets in, or something kind of starts to happen where all that intuitive good stuff you're talking about starts to get lost, I guess, into a new formation of self or something. I don't know. But yeah, I just wanted you to speak on that. Another thing you might find interesting, is a little bit far out, but the Gnostic Gospels, and this is a bit wacky, they speak a lot about what you are talking about, and they call these things archons, these kind of false entities that become selves. Now, they were kind of written out of the Bible for whatever reason, but they were kind of like malevolent spirits, basically, that masqueraded as a self, and they were called archons. It seems to me like alcoholism is that, or the self is that. So yeah, but that inertia, why is it that we lose some of this stuff, this enlightenment?
Well, first I want to say Mm. It really doesn't matter if self is other or not. Seeing it as other brings about a great relief. Yes? And then you find out, see, what I'm stating here, I found out. Yeah? Something changed and I saw it as other. Now I'm trying to share it, and maybe the change isn't there. But see, I arrived at it by a change, and then it was clear I wasn't that. Yeah? But you can't, why wait to, to have that moment if you can actually hear about it? And it doesn't matter if you get the real impact or not. Just the idea that it's other gives you a whole lot more breathing room. Yeah, because the act really, the bondage is an identification or a gluing of one thing to another. Yeah, I don't care even if it's true or not. I know the relief comes if you see it as something other than you. That's for sure. Just like it happened in the beginning when a lot of the thoughts you called yours were seen as alcoholic. That was a big movement. Yeah. There was space now. You weren't like in that claustrophobic closet. So you're on to something. Yes? Yeah. The problem by the relief from it, really. And then you arrive at exactly that there's a foreignness to what is talking to us. Yeah. It veils its agenda. Yeah. It veils its agenda by the talking about us. Yeah. But if you look at what's happening, we're constantly having experiences of powerlessness, really. As almost as if we've been sort of narcoticized or like Novocaine or something, like we're numbed out. Yeah. And almost something, we're numbed out so that we're not struggling against that which has taken us over. And so when it gets its fuel, it really goes to town, because then you're pretty much neutered and it's just using you for transportation. Now we're awake, yeah, through the program. We're coming to, yeah, like it says, you come to believe. We're coming to the realization that this thing I've been calling me is foreign, yeah, which is an awesome point. Awesome, because the possibilities are unbelievably huge when you see that which you're not as what you're not. Yeah, really. And then you won't be taking credit or blame for most of the shit that it's promoting. Yeah, and there's real humility, real humility. So, of course, it's like we say, no one ever gets free from alcoholism. It's always latently there. So it's working all the time, trying to lead us to mini fuck it's or a big fuck it so that we can do something from its point of view and leave a mark, leave like court dates or a ruined relationship or shit like that. Yeah. It's always constantly sowing its seeds to take supremacy again. Yeah. So, and how it does is you call what it's saying, you saying it. Yeah, that's what happens. We give life to the fuck it, really. It can present a fuck it a lot of the days and you're not fucked. Yeah, it's when there's a belief in it as you, then you're screwed. Yeah, it needs that bridge of identification to really take over. And that bridge has been noticed in recovery. We've seen it, yeah? So we can basically at least have a sense of distance from this freaking thing, yeah? And as it said in what we were reading, and there'll be more and more distance from it. So I just feel what it does, it just researches its view, basically, over and over and over again, yeah? But then, it can be weakened sufficiently, not by us, but by the higher power. Yeah. And now you basically, the problem will not exist for you is a beginning. It's like an experience. Then that, just like it says, you sincerely take a position, then you get established. So first you see the problem doesn't exist for you today. Then you start seeing the problem doesn't exist as you. That's unbelievable. Yeah. That's like a stabilized distance from it. That's when traveling lighter can stabilize, yeah? Is when you move from the experience, hey, the problem doesn't seem to exist for me, as the problem. Now you see the problem doesn't exist as you. It's a big move, yeah? So, but I don't know what's happening with everybody. I don't care how deeply it looks like you're in it. The possibility that you're not in it is always available at all times, with no requirement necessary. Its whole landscape is made up. It's a dreaming. Yeah, it's a magician. And if you come, ever been on like a train of self, thoughts, and then you get off, and you got off, and every time you get off that train, it's the same off. You're there, yeah, and you've never not been there, yeah. When you're in? Is there any difference in any moment when you really feel like the presence? Does it feel different? No, it's the same. Like the presence I felt when I went to my first hospital and institution meeting. The same presence is available now. It doesn't matter what happened or what supposedly happened, what's going to happen. It's the same. Spirit doesn't fluctuate from Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday. Yeah. So we've come upon something that's reliable, that infinite thing. And we're in the progression of moving more towards that and moving away from trusting self. That's all. And all the way, just honor the demonstrations and have some gratitude. We can be available to others. Yeah. I like it, Luke. You're good. You're good, bro. Yeah.
Thanks, Luke. And G, you ready, mate? There you go.
Yeah. Cheers. Thanks, Paul. I think you may have just answered my question, but I have been, thanks for last week as well. The resentment just vanished. I prayed for his happiness, and it went. But it comes back. It comes back now and then, and that's why I struggle with. Thing is, I know self is the root of all my problems and troubles, and I think you touched on it when you kind of said the thinking is addictive. The thinking around self is I think for me that's an addiction as well, without drink and drug.
Yes.
Like now it feels, oh, that's naughty, you're thinking about self again. But sometimes I flirt with it and I stay in it, and then I try to come out of it, then I'm back in it and I'm out of it. I think the thinking of self is as well an addiction. Is there a mantra or something else you use throughout the day that keeps you separated from self?
No, because I am separate from self. There's no need to keep yourself. There's no need to keep separate from self. You are separate from self, period. It's the thing that keeps saying you're not that we're listening to. Yeah. So no, I don't do anything. If I did something to separate from self, I would give self a reality it doesn't deserve, really. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Now, if the interest and attention that we vaguely call G is on self, please don't try to use the philosophy to get out of self. Just do the steps, take action, go be available to someone else. Yes? That works a lot better. Like he said, we had philosophical ideas galore, but they weren't sufficient enough. So self will talk as self and give you a plan of how to get out of self. And then critique how you're doing every step of the way. Yeah? Yeah. So don't, yeah. But if you need to get out of self, then do the tried and true methodology of service and stuff like that. Or if you can't be of service, distract your fucking little rat mind. Yeah. Distracted. What do you think they have Netflix for? Get into someone else's life and lose interest in your own. Yeah. I probably have more emotional connection with people that I see on Bloodline and other shows on Netflix than I'm having here. I'm worried about John. Yeah.
Do you think there is an actual person living who is separate from self in that addiction?
Yes,
Like, really, is there? Is it real?
I see.
Because I think majority of us,
but not as a person. But I don't want to go into that. But yeah, we're all living separate as self, but we don't think so, or the system doesn't think so. Yeah, when you were a baby, there was no sense of self for the first year or so. You were living then, weren't you? So every one of us has a history of living separate from self. It's like, and why do we think it didn't continue? Because the mental state said it didn't. The mental states developed, and then self became the dominant view. Yeah, but in fact, nothing has changed. And it's going to end up the same way. Someone's going to be changing your adult diaper, and you're going to be flailing around not knowing what's going on. And you'll probably, quote unquote, lose a sense of self when you're older anyway. So basically, the reign of self is a very short one. There is no self, you see. There is no thing within the thing. Yeah. There's ideas. There's an idea. See, self is remembered. Yeah, it isn't so. It's not being self. It was, I was self and I'm gonna be self. Yeah. That's why it's so important to have the host listen to its narration, because that's where the magic is spun. Yeah. So I was Paul, obviously. Look at all those pictures. Yeah, and I will be Paul, or why would I be worrying so much about this fucking stranger in the future? So of course I'm going to be Paul in the future. Therefore I'm Paul now. Yeah, that's how it does it. It's a trip. And then, whatever. But there's a solution, bro. Yeah, there is.
The ego. I have a big ego. I think that's massive part of my
You don't have a big ego. Your head says it has a big ego. All that yapping isn't of you, G. You've never heard yourself here, ever. You are yourself. You don't keep hearing yourself yapping all day. That's not you. You are what you are. You're being what you're not. You're not coming to fruition by thinking. You're before thinking. Yeah.
Yeah.
What you are has to talk through all that bullshit with intuitive shots and a sense of something. Yes, it keeps communicating all the time, but it gets overridden by the static on the fucking, your franchise radio station, KG. You just listen to it 24/7, and it's just a bunch of golden oldies and other shit.
Yeah.
There's other stations available. Yeah. And you can't blame the radio. You can't blame the radio for the music that's playing through it. You can't. No, the radio is just a transmitter. We're just an expressor. Yeah. Hopefully most of us are now expressing somewhat a higher power, and we were all expressing a lower power in the past. Yes. We're just an expressor. We're just like a radio. So if you don't like what I say, fucking throw something at the radio. There's nothing to do with me. It's coming from another source, yeah? Yes.
Okay.
Brilliant.
No
Thank
one
you.
else is listening to KG, I'm telling you. Right next to you is K Jeff, and then there's K Nor, and there's K Robert, and there's K Johans, there's K Jane, and there's K Paul. They're all they're underneath a franchise channel called Unclear Channel. Unclear Channel, broadcasting 24/7. We all think it's our radio. We think, oh, I wrote every song that comes through it. I produce all the products that are being sold by it. Oh yeah, it's all me. Jesus Christ. It's your subscribing list is one, you. No one else is subscribing to your channel. Yet everyone's channel is the exact same. Exact same. Exactly. We're listening to the same BS all day. Thinking it's about me. There's tons of me's. Yeah. Yeah. We forgot the coronation. We forgot, the mental state. Just propose there's a you. Then there's now starts to become an interest in a you. So now it's you. And then it's crowned the king of all kings, me. And at that point, no one can feel like I feel. No one thinks like I think. No one's done the things I've done. And everyone in the stations is saying the same freaking thing. Yeah. There's been nothing. You don't need to separate from self. You have just see it's not you. And then you will verify the true clarity that it's not you. Trying to get out of self is just going to lead being back in self, then out and in and out and in. When you stop trying to get out of self, you'll realize you're not in self. And that's established. It's not produced. It's not an affectation. It's not something that was achieved. It's a fact. You are not that which your thought system is taking you to be. You are not that. You never were that. You're never going to be that. And that's that. Look at what happens here, really. We've been convinced that we can be out of a moment, so then we become interested in how to get into the moment. And then a lot of businesses grow up of how to get you into the moment. And for them to be the successful, they've got to, their whole business plan is based on you're going to be out of the moment again, no matter what. So you're going to come back and buy the next book, How to Really Get Into the Moment, and so on and so forth. All predicated on an insane idea that you and I can be out of a moment. We can't. Yeah? So we're trying to get into what we can't be out of, and then conversely, we're trying to get out of self, which we can't be in. You see? That's not going with the flow. Yes. So this just clears everything up. It's like putting a horse in front of the cart. Things make sense. Or in Zen, they would say, you see blue as blue and red as red. Yes, things become clearer. Not through any thought or effort on your part, just a this diminishing of all the interest and attention going into what you're not. Yeah. Now that interest and attention, instead of being used to enslave you to this idea of being Paul in the past and going to be Paul in the future, enriches your moment. It enriches it. You're awake. Yeah. I can smell what's coming through the window. I see shit happening. I'm hearing. I'm doing da da da. You're awake. You're here. You've never not been here. And you'll know the problem from the solution. If there's relief from the bondage of self, you'll see exactly that was the problem, bondage of self. I swear to God. The relief will verify what they were pointing to in the big book. It will. All right, G.
Yeah,
I'm turning you off your channel. Go to another station.
Thank you.
Brilliant. That was awesome.
You,
Thank
G.
you. I've had a message from Mel. Mel, it's over to you.
Yeah, hi Paul. This is really confusing for a simple person like me. My mind's in bits with the you bit and everything. Right, so basically keeping it really simple for someone simple like me. As Sadhguru would say, I am not the body, I am not even the mind, which to me means spirit. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Thank you. That'll do. I've got it.
Well, we're not talking about that. We're talking about what we're not. So then you arrive at your spirit by realizing what you're not. What most people are trying to do, they don't understand. They're starting from what they're not, trying to realize spirit. That doesn't go anywhere. You study what you're not, and then you find out what you are. You don't study what you are from what you're not. It doesn't go anywhere. That's called self-knowledge avails you nothing. Yeah, that's simple. Yeah, self-knowledge avails you nothing.
Yeah.
Now, knowledge of self is very valuable. Self-knowledge avails you nothing. What changed? The position of self. At one point, it was looked at. The other point, it has the knowledge. Self-knowledge avails you nothing. Knowledge of self is valuable. It's become obvious. It's become obvious people are trying to become spiritual as what they're not. So let's just look at what we're not and see it as not us, and you'll find out you're spiritual. You'll find out your spirit. Yes. That's that's very simple.
I'll work on that. That's still a little complicated, but I'll keep thinking about it. Or maybe
All right,
not.
honey.
Thank you.
Cheers, Mel. Awesome. Madeira from AA. Over to you.
Oh, I guess that would be me, Rowena. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Rowena.
I've been watching you for a while, listening and consuming the knowledge and on the steps and stuff, and I really appreciate it. And the friend of mine, he started listening to you and in the program, and he brought it to our fellowship. So he brought the whole concept of self to our fellowship, and I'm so grateful for him. His name is Michael, and he's a really awesome guy, and he's listening to you a lot. But I just wanted to say that, and I wanted to ask you, because I know you have multiple years. I think you have 20-some years or 30-some years or something, but when did you come to? When did you come to realize that it was self that was destroying you? Basically because I've been sober quite a few years, and I'm very grateful for that. But I had a lot of self going on for a few years, and it caused a lot of destruction, a lot of pain, and a lot of even in sobriety is what I'm talking about. But I guess it takes the pain to come to, so to speak, because I'm 23 now, and I'm just coming to realize that self is destructive. And I wrote down what you said right now because it was amazing. You said you are before your thoughts, and that gave me chills because it's my thoughts that have been so destructive my whole life. My thoughts of just the negative, to sum it up, just negative. And I just wanted to know, because I really admire you, and I wanted to know when it came to you, to realize that self was the problem. Because God dang it, it seems like it's taken me, I'm 55 years old with 23 years sober, and it's taken me all this time to come to realize that I don't have to be in self. And it's amazing, and I appreciate you, and you're touching people all over the world, and that's amazing. That's amazing, and God's gonna bless you, because you've blessed a lot of people on here. So my question is, when did you come to? You know,
Now.
I mean, did you get struck with it? Were you
Yeah.
just struck with it?
Now.
Were you struck
Now.
with it,
It's
or
always a
did you
no.
look at it?
No, I would say when it's always here, but when it crystallized here, yeah, in my AA life, was one night. I used to lead a 4th step workshop in San Francisco, and as I was sharing about inventory and stuff like that, that power kept downloading more information. And then while I was in that pursuit of sharing, I would read How It Works quite a lot. And then one night I was reading that statement of being convinced that self, manifested in various ways, is what has defeated us. And I had a very, 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 very strong feeling of self as other. Yes. Yeah. The first time, really, a sufficient, really strong otherness. No hybrid, no mixing, no in and out, but an otherness. And then what happened right after that, as soon as I saw it as other, a possibility dawned on me. I can be free from it. Yeah, it was beautiful. Now, and it wasn't like something you would say like a mantra every day. It was a recognition of a possibility that had always been available, but it just suddenly became available, which is I can be free from it. And then in the next like 30 seconds, I had a flash of my life from since I was like 6 years old until that present time. And I saw that I had been trying to get out of self as self most of my life. Yeah. And it explained everything. Yeah. It explained everything in a nanosecond. And from that point on, that thing that may have come in and out got clarified and got established, just like it said, sincerely taking position, and then you get established. I got established in this view, in a sense. And from then on, the 4th step workshop changed a lot. People were coming in thinking they were going to write all day. And I was just got on fire about this. And then that brought a lot of trouble from the community, but whatever. And it hasn't gone out ever since. Yeah. Just hasn't gone out. I just found such a solution in it. And when you go to meetings and stuff, you see people, speaking about the misery as if they manufactured it, like they're the owner of the fucking misery. They're not going to get out of guilt and shame forever. If you keep claiming to be the doer of all this shit, it's going to keep doing you. It is. And so I just felt like compelled to start sharing it. And then that's what I've done. And, I've been sharing for like 27 years or something. Yeah. And of course, more gets revealed, which is awesome. And then, like this lady we were talking just before, that statement, self-knowledge avails us nothing, always interested me, because a lot of us give value to knowledge. It seems like it's important to know a trade, a craft, your art, whatever. But in this way, it said self-knowledge. And I saw self, like I've been trying to share the whole book, I saw it as something other than me. So I saw when that which is other than me gains knowledge, yeah, it doesn't lead to freedom from it, yeah. So that knowledge about self as self doesn't avail me anything. It makes it worse. It was probably the reason why I started having knowledge about self as self, and it provoked more usage, more drinking, yeah. I wanted to get out of it even more. I didn't see the act of being identified as it until a couple of years later, until what I just shared. It wasn't clear. I had felt the freedom, but it wasn't clarified enough to really share it. So that clarified it that time. And it's never come up for debate or review. You don't have to go back and polish it up. It's just clear. And the relief verifies itself by more relief, basically. Yeah, you know the problem from the solution. That's the only way you can know it. Yeah, is relief from it, really. So, but thanks. And the action figure, one of its goals is to put it out there. And I was frustrated in my own community. That's why we put out the website. That's where I lost my anonymity, because then I got interviewed by people outside of recovery. And then the whole thing, the horses were out of the barn. And so I just said, fuck it, and just keep sharing. Yeah. But I wanted, just like you shared, people, you brought it into your community, this idea. That's all I wanted in my community. I was watching people leave after around 10 or 12 years because there was something missing they weren't finding in AA. And I figured, why not bring it back into AA? Yeah. Why do you have to leave AA to further something? It should be included. It can be included. AA is a huge platform. Yeah. And we're supposed to have contempt prior to it. We don't not to have any contempt prior to investigation. So instead of people leaving AA, because what happens is, if you get into a way of life to take the place of AA, you're going to be a drunk Buddhist. You know, that's what happens. You're going to be a drunk non-dualist. Yeah, because the action figure has the disease. It's not what's thinking is you, is a mental thing. Yeah, the action figure has alcoholism. Yeah, and it needs to be treated. If you're a real addict, you need a way of life. And maybe Buddhism doesn't get to where AA will get to. So yeah, add Buddhism on, but don't replace it. Yeah. So that's all we're trying to share. And it's that feels great, hearing about your friend bringing it into a community. That's the whole point. Yeah. I want this possibility to be available in our community. Yeah. That's why I want to be available. Because I find it's from the relief that gives it a voice. Yeah. It's not a selling point. It's not a fucking commodity. It's the relief that I've sensed compels the talking. Yeah. Who would want to keep it to oneself? You want to share it. Like if you, just like AA, you know, the yellow bus of AA came into hell and took you out of hell, you're going to communicate to people in hell, hey, there's a yellow bus that comes at 3 o'clock every day. Get on it. You know what I mean? Or you'll even go back to hell to sit with them. Yeah, that's just an appropriate reaction or response. Can you imagine if you got a huge amount of relief? And that relief showed you what the ongoing problem is. Even when you're in recovery, the self is still thriving, and you got to the exact nature of the wrong. You wouldn't want to share it in a community? Of course you would. Yeah. Now, if someone takes it or doesn't, that's not up to me. But we have the right to hear it. We have the right to hear ideas. Yeah. To me, that sense of presence and freedom is what's attractive. Yeah. Not 40 years, not, that's what's attractive to me. That's what, when I see someone lit up, I'm interested in to hear what they say. Yeah. Because light begets light in a way. So. But that's enough. Let's.
Okay. All right. Next is Dave. Dave Lovell. Over to you, mate.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for that. Really important, massive topic, isn't it? I mean, this is, this. Yeah, it's the crux of my illness. You know what I mean? This whole relieve me of the bondage of self and self-obsession, and so it really is such an important part of recovery, isn't it? And and my question really was, like, listening to you. You were talking about like that, I mean, I identify all that stuff that you read in the book, self-centeredness and selfishness and, total alcoholic and all about me and my little plans and my designs, that bit of the book from page 60 to 63 is the bit I identify most with in the whole book, really, the actor running the show and all that, and
we're losing him a little bit.
Yeah,
oh, yeah?
But can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, really, the
I'm losing. I can't understand.
I think it's you, mate. I think it's you, Paul. I think your signal might be getting a bit cracky.
Is that me or them?
I'll turn your video off and just listen to it. I think it's you. I think it's you. I can hear him okay. Paul?
Can you hear me?
I think he might have dropped out. So just hold on for a minute, mate. We'll just see.
Okay.
This happened last week, I think, didn't it? So yeah, he's there. He's still there. He's still here. Okay,
Can you
Paul.
hear me, Paul?
Paul?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay.
You can hear me.
On,
Okay,
mate.
cool.
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was saying basically, obviously this is the crux of my illness, and to be free of the bondage of self. So I say that step-free prayer every morning, and yeah, I do my best to get out of self as much as possible. But what I caught, the question I've really got is, when you were talking, you were saying that, like, it's like we've been taken over by a foreign body. It's not us. It's a foreign body that's come in, and we've bought into it. We've bought into that body is us, and that is us.
Yeah.
So like I've got sort of two parts to my question. The first part is where does that foreign body come from, sort of thing. That's what I'm trying to say. Where does it? If it's not me, where does it come from? And then the second part of my question is, listening to you then, sort of, when you're talking about the solution, the bit that really I just want to make to clarify this is, kind of what you were saying was to realise that the solution is to realise it's not me, and that it never was me. That that I am not. It's a foreign body, and it's not me, and it never was. I'm kind of like, in a sort of like a bit like an Eckhart Tolle sort of thing, is just to be the knowing, to observe it, and to be aware. Is that kind of what you're saying? If you could just clarify around that for me.
Well, the first thing, I forgot already what you said.
Hold on.
Oh, where is its origin? Well, it's not a body per se. It's just an activity of mind, yeah? A parasitical movement. There's no thing. You can't take an X-ray and see it. You can see its effects, but you can't see it. So I would say it's of the mental state, yeah? And then the second thing is the idea of, like, being in the moment. You are in the moment, yeah, already. Yes? And sort of like, you got to be careful, the movement of self, trying to get out of self. It's quite a lot. Yeah.
Excuse me, Paul.
Yeah.
We're looking at your knee. I think we're not seeing your face there, mate. Just so you know.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Oh, where's my camera?
Yeah.
Whatever. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's going the other way. How did that happen?
Yeah.
How do I reverse it? Hold it. All right, I think I did it.
Yeah, that's it. Got it. Sorry.
That's where all the knowledge lies, is in the knee. It's in the knee. Alcoholism is in the elbow, right there. The knee thinks it's an elbow. That's the problem. It's walking around like this. No, so the ofness to me doesn't, its origin I don't care about. I just want relief, you know. So I don't know. I'm not taking I'm not an archaeologist. I'm not trying to find out the beginnings, because I don't believe there's a beginning or an end. It's just a possibility now. So I think, you know, for me, AA program's pretty damn sound. If you do service and stuff like that, you'll get plenty of experiences of what we would call being out of self. And sooner or later, things are going to make sense to you. And you'll get some, see, the thing is, the program itself gives you relief, and then you come to, and now you know you have relief. But the relief is already there. So we're being worked on, and then there'll be a day where you notice it. But the working is already happening. Yeah, the progress is already occurring. No matter what you think, something, what you are or something is moving towards trusting something infinite as we speak. Yeah, in my view. Now, you may come to understand that, just like we used to say in the beginning, you know, you won't even know what's happening. Other people will recognize something that's happening to you before you do. Yeah, because a lot of times we're out to lunch in knowing what's going on, but it doesn't mean it's not going on. So right now, things are changing in all of us just by being influenced by the program, in my view. Yeah. And I would say the basic migration of all of us is leaving the trusting of something finite and moving to the trusting of something infinite. If you want to look at it as like a herd, the herd of wild beasts are going this way. Yeah. The mental state wants to keep thinking it's back there. Yeah. So here you're going, but the mental state's back at there. And so forget about convincing that shit. Just keep going. How many coincidences have you seen? How many interesting things happen? You start seeing things differently. I mean, just honor that. Yeah, you're on the, things are changing. The principles are sound. All we're really addressing is the exact nature of the wrong. We're just attempting to add, to clarify the exact nature of the wrong, which from what we're sharing is the act of being identified as self. Now, we're not in that act. The mental state is in that act of being identified as self. That which we're listening to a lot during the day, the thoughts, yes, and the narration, those thoughts and the narration are in the act of being identified as self. That's what it is. You're not that. You're not in the act of being identified as self. The mental state is in the act of being identified as self. A lot of interest and attention is given over to the mental state. Yeah. That's where alcoholism gets a chance to get into the interest and attention, because alcoholism is in the mental state. The problem resides in the mind. Yeah. So the problem is in the act of being identified as self. And then another extension of the problem, alcoholism, lands on that and fucking uses it. Yes. And now you have an extreme version, and some of us are quite flamboyant, and we find newfound powers of attracting authorities to us and shit like that. And we keep blaming it on us and shit, or the cops or the judge, because we've been out to lunch. We've been neutered. Yeah. Our one quality, which is consciousness and seeing, has seemed to be muted. So we're unconscious. So that's why it says you'll become conscious of the presence, because right now you're unconscious to the presence, because you're very conscious to yesterday and tomorrow. We're very conscious to a story. Yeah. And so we're unconscious to presence, seemingly. Yeah. So the obsession with the story, and it's not us. We're not obsessed with the story. Interest and attention is obsessed with the story. That same interest and attention can be freed and put into something else. Yeah. But we keep calling it us. Yeah. I'm in self, I'm in self, I'm in da 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 da. How are you going to get out of something you're constantly proclaiming to be in? It's ridiculous. Yeah. See, I want to share this. I shot a lot of cocaine. That was my keen interest. And when people would come over, my girlfriend would have to explain it to my friends because it was a religion to me. It was like a sacrament. And I was shooting up, and my belief was if I taught my mind sufficiently tight, it would snap and I'd be free from it, really. That's what I was shooting for. Yeah. Now, I didn't know self was trying to get out of self. I thought it was me trying to get out of self. And I figured at the last moment before I overdose, there'll be a moment where I'm free from that. And it seemed like there was a willingness to kill myself just to get a sense of not being that. Yeah. And I would overdose and I'd come to and I'd be in the same movie. I couldn't believe it. You know, I said, what the fuck? I can't get out of this place, you know? Then I realized, how can I get out of what I'm not in? Yeah. I'm sort of in a dream and I can't get out of it as the dreamt. Yeah. So I stopped. So then I entered recovery and I realized, Jesus, it wasn't because I haven't done enough. I didn't meditate enough. I didn't stay with the guru enough. I didn't shoot cocaine enough. It didn't mean anything. I can't escape from an imaginary condition. I'm trying to get out of me as me. And the me is an imaginary condition. It can produce seemingly real effects, but it's imaginary. As it says in our thing, false evidence is appearing real all day. It's appearing real as us all day. It's presented us as a false evidence, and it's appearing as us all day. Yeah. So what happened? False evidence appears real. Now, how could that happen? How could false evidence appear real? It would have to appear real to what's real. Yeah? We're reality. Underneath all this is reality. Mental state is constantly providing false evidence to the reality. The false evidence, if it appears real to the reality, it seems as real can be. If it doesn't appear real, you see this too shall pass. Yeah, it's not based on this, it's based on us. Yeah. I'm saying something has taken us over. Isn't it I think it behooves us to figure that out because we may be living as it. Yeah. And we may be caught by the statement from our community, self can't get out of self. It explained my whole life when it hit me. That's exactly what I've been doing since I was 6 years old. I've been trying to get out of me as me. And it failed miserably. All it did was reinforce the me I wanted to get out of. So I had to shoot up more. I had to do more. I had to do more. I had to do more. Yeah. None of it was successful. I never got out of me as me. Yeah. So after all the blaming and all the this and all that, I realized, how can I escape from an imaginary place? Yeah. I'm not in what I think I'm in. And I'm not out of what I think I'm out of. That's what those eyes were given to me. Yeah, I've seen what I'm not. And now there's no drive to get out of it, none at all. Zippo. I have no signs of spirituality in me. I'm not trying to get out of me at all. I'm totally, completely here for probably the first time in my life for these last years. My whole life was trying to get out of here. Now I'm completely here. Yeah, because I'm out of here. That's how it works. It's weird, but that's how it goes.
Okay. Yep. Next one. Paul, you all right with that?
Eh?
You all right for that? Next, are you right for that? Next one?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Bennett. So and this is going to be the last question. Gary, can you hold your question till Thursday, because I think this will be the last one now from Bennett. I'm just finding you. Sorry, because you didn't put your hand up. There you go, Bennett.
Bennett, how are you?
Greeting. How are Paul? Nice to meet you. First time I've actually spoken to you. I really like your meetings. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, And they talk about what you're talking about with respect to self. And I just want to ask if this is, if it's in alignment with your conception of it, because they sound very similar, and I just kind of wanted to confirm that. It seems to me that they talk about the self as being like an overcoat that is worn, that who you really are is this luminous spiritual entity that's connected to the universe and to God and to everybody else. And the self is like an overcoat that you wear, and then at some point you throw it off and then maybe take on another overcoat at some other point in time. And so I'm wondering, is the alcoholism a form of that overcoat? Like for some reason we went to a bad thrift store and got a really bad overcoat, and that's the one we're wearing. And that's the one you try to get rid of. And if you're too much inside this idea of that you think this overcoat you're wearing is actually you, then
Yes.
that's where problems arise.
Yes. The imagery goes along with it. I have a couple different ideas. They're speaking about reincarnation also, about changing of the overcoat, on and on and on. But yes, see, it's like you bought the overcoat at a thrift store. You thought it was great, but then you get home and it has a certain smell you can never get rid of. Yeah, that would be like alcoholism. You wash it, you never get the stink out. Yeah, I don't. All those imagery. See, if the assessment of the exact nature of the disease is correct, which is identification as, then that which we're identified as, if seen as other, is a remedy. Yes, that would be the first recognition that would be needed. You would need to see that it's not you, or at least start entertaining the idea, and then find out that it was never you. Yeah, because if you don't see it as other, you're going to be looking for whatever you're looking for as it. Yeah, that's really the point. The imagery are nice ways to trigger a reaction or a response, but the point is, I can't live my life from where I'm not. It's not probably going to fit well. Yeah, and I can't try to convince what I'm not that it's not me. That doesn't work. So I have to see it as something other, and in seeing something as something other, the possibility of being free from it becomes available. Yes, it's all based on the diagnosis I'm attempting to share, which is, I believe it's an activity. The bondage never happened, nor will it ever happen. It seems to be happening now by the devotion and the interest in the thought system and the perceptual interpretation and the memories of being a body and being the doer and the thinker and the hearer and the feeler. I think that whole system is constantly in the act of being identified as what we're not. So while there's a listening to it, it's probably going to land us to its result. And when you land at the result, you think that's the alpha and the omega. You believe that's where you began. So it's a produced result. When you land there, you think that's you. Yes. So whatever imagery, they're all over the place, because the same dilemma has been run into in all sort of spiritual paths and stuff. They constantly run into the fact that self can't get out of self, or you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha, or you can't use light to seek light, implying that you're light, you're the Buddha. Yeah. So, yes.
Like Buddha wasn't a Buddhist and Christ wasn't a Christian, and so on and so forth.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It's an inherent, Buddha wasn't a thing. It's really called Buddha mind or Buddha nature. And Christ was Christ consciousness, not a person in a way. So they're implying there is a no-thingness that's all things, yeah? A no-thingness which is supreme. Instead of the things being the dominant reality, the no-thing is the reality, and the things are a dream in the reality. It's just changing the horse and the cart position. And it works for me, you know?
Yeah.
It's worked without working it, which is awesome, to tell you the truth. Yeah, to me, it's the easier, softer way, for sure. Thanks, bro. Nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
You should come to one of the other meetings we have on Wednesday and Saturday.
Yeah.
That's the non-duality. That will be more. Yeah, you can go into that more on that level. Yeah.
Which is at zenbitchslap.com. I haven't mentioned that again. So yeah, there's a Zoom room there, isn't there, Paul and Mike?
Yeah,
so
there'll all be
a separate
links are there.
Yeah, it's not this Zoom address; it's another Zoom address.
Topic. Yeah, we have a different topic on the other Wednesday and Saturday meetings, which is under the umbrella of an idea called non-duality. Yeah. So.
Okay. So that's it then. So for another day. So we'll be back Thursday.
You're shutting it off, Dave. How are you? I'm just getting warmed up.
Oh, you want to keep going?
No, it's good.
You sure? We're more than welcome. We've got loads of people here waiting to put their hand up.
Oh yeah, let's do what time is it now? Yeah.
It's it's 8 o'clock UK. So what's that? So that's what, 11 o'clock your time or something, is it? 12 o'clock midday. Is it?
Oh yeah, we'll do another one or two if you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, great. Okay. Well, look, Gary C. If you're still up for it, mate, I'll unmute you. Because Gary's very patient, very kind.
Not from Gary. No. I'm only kidding.
Okay. Too late.
I'm only kidding.
Go on, Gary.
Well, you're probably right. But am I unmuted? Yeah. It looks
Yes,
like.
you are.
So my question's a fourth step question. And it was okay if it wasn't going to get answered because, that's as good an answer as any. But since I have the opportunity, I'll ask it. I struggle with figuring out a way to do the fourth step now. But, the first time when I went through an inventory, I none of the methods worked for me. And I ended up doing something that was a little different, which was just finding the statements like, for example, my father, a resentment, my father never listened to me. And I would just question that statement by going, is that true? Yeah, well, is it really true? And sit with it and come to realize, well, and look at it from another method like, well, look at the turnaround. He did listen to me. I see ways that he did hear me, even though he was angry with me sometimes. And then I'd look at it from the other point of view, like I never listened to him. Well, that's as true or truer. So I used that method to look at my resentments and other uncomfortable feelings, and that kind of worked for me. I could go down the list, but I've seen some of the inventory processes that you use and other people use. There seems like there's a lot of different variations, and I'm just asking, like, what do you think? Is that okay for me? Should I use a different method to do an inventory?
If you have a sponsor, that's something to talk to him about. I'm a believer that you can be inclusive. You can do it the way you do it and also do it in the 4-column way. Yeah. Because the 4-column way is a very good diagnosis of self and how it's defeated us. Yeah. And just because you don't have the resentment anymore doesn't mean you don't need to put it on. You can put it down. Yeah. So that you can see how self has defeated us by looking at the inventory. And then you'll see its role that we call our role, where are we being selfish, self-seeking, and frightened, inconsiderate, dishonest? I would say I see it in a different light. I don't see it as mine. I see it as the self's. Yeah. the fourth column.
Yeah.
I'm just using this same, I'm using this theme throughout these talks because this is how I see it. So I'm just sharing it that way. So I think it's important to do it, the 4-column inventory. Doesn't mean don't do it your way, do that also. But I like following it the way it was laid out. Yeah. Yeah. Because I want to, you're going to see the pattern and writing is important to write it down. You'll see the pattern of how self has defeated us. So self usually defeats us in topics it takes to be very important. So like for me, you know, my acting out sexually had very little to do with sex. It had to do with self-esteem. Yeah, I was trying to acquire self-esteem and one of my prerequisites was if a pretty woman would let me go to sleep with her, I must be okay. Against tons of evidence, I wasn't okay. So I was driven by that. And I was driven by the statement in our program and our community, which is you got to be willing to save your ass instead of your face. But when I came into AA, I thought my face was my ass. Yeah. I was identified as an image. Yes. So a lot of my resentments are pride, self-esteem, my relationships to others. They're not giving me what I think I deserve, all that. So it's very interesting because the self isn't an infinite variation. It has a couple of traits and it's very like mechanical and redundant. Yeah. So it's sort of like, if there's shit, you're guaranteed the flies are going to show up. Yeah. So now you start recognizing it. And therefore, when it starts to grow, you see it, and then you do 6 and 7 with it. Yeah. So what I feel, what the inventory does, it puts you more before the consequences, not just an assessment after consequences. So you see what's leading you, or you're seeing self leading you to a situation, and before you get to that situation, you do 6 and 7 on it. Yeah. Hey, I'm entirely ready to have whatever I'm seeing right now starting to cook up like a resentment or whatever, and I ask that higher power to remove it. Yeah. So to me, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are very 6 and 7 are the most active steps, I feel, once you're into the program for a while. Yeah. So I think doing the 4-column inventory is good because it gives you the idea of the instincts. It gives you, and then you also see when you do resentments, you see there is usually a reason why. When you do fear, sometimes there's no reason why to have the fear. Like you're afraid you're going to die, but you're not sick and shit. Yes? So you'll see that the fear comes from the agenda where the resentment seems to threaten the agenda. Yeah? These are very good understandings to have, because if you can recognize the direction of self and how it lands, you can abort the fucking mission, so to speak. Yeah? Not by your knowledge, but by 6 and 7. Yes? Hey, I see it all the time. I'm at meetings and people are talking about their alcoholism. It's our alcoholism. I see it. And if there's a little twinge somewhere, I immediately do 6 and 7. I go, hey, I'm entirely ready to have this preoccupation of myself that this person's describing. I'm entirely ready to have that reconfigured, and I ask that power to do it. That's it. I've just done, 6 and 7. Because it's not a self-help program. It's a reliance on a higher power program. Yeah. There's not one point. And actually, the longer you're in AA, the more it's revealed that it had nothing to do with your thought or effort. You're placed in a position out of neutrality with no thought or effort on your part. Your part becomes much more minimal as you go along, I find. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, do both. Yeah. That's why.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. Paul W. from Leicester, last one. Here we go. You're unmuted. Oh, I don't know, you're not. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, mate, Paul.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah, I do believe in that 4-column method because all my defects of character boil down to only a few, really. You just keep seeing the same patterns, you have to look for them. I do believe in that. But the question was going to be about how do you know the difference between this sort of knowledge that you said, feeling what is false and what isn't, and what is real? How do you know what is false and what is?
You'll just know, bro. Just like it says in the book, this new idea, relying on a higher power, there'll be mistakes. You'll mistake self-will for it and shit like that, but it won't last. You can feel it in your gut. Yes, I feel it. I feel when there's something, like I'm saying something to someone, but I'm not getting to the point. I can feel it immediately. You can feel like the tinniness, the bogusness of it. Yeah. If you're having trouble living these principles in all your affairs, limit your affairs until more stuff gets revealed. Yeah?
Yeah, I get what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I've been around a long while, so I've read all this stuff in the big book, but it's applying it all, and you again and again learning stuff. It's not that you ever stop learning, is it? So.
No, but you can get a feeling of where the learning's coming from. I feel you get a sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, usually, like, let's say if you get an idea and the next idea is, I don't want to share this with anybody, maybe that gives you a little clue. It's coming from a certain source. Yeah. Then there's other ones that are, you start being able to recognize the source of the information coming through. We're not 2 levels below a coconut. Yeah. There's consciousness here. You can.
That's true. You do have a sense, don't you? Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're gonna, in a way, you'll know the tree by its fruits, as Jesus supposedly said. Yeah. So you follow certain things, you'll know that if you were sitting under the right tree by the fruits. Yeah. How you traveled through it. I feel it's a lot more intimation. See, a lot of these questions, you can't say anything rote. It's a feeling. It's a feeling. Like, I don't have any rote way I work with people. It's based on the person's condition. Yeah. And so one person's condition is different than another's. And, that's how, and then it just comes through the way it comes through. And I really don't, I have a faith in it, really. And it's not a leap of faith, because I've watched it. It's worked in this life. And I've watched it work in a lot of people's lives. Yeah. I trust the process, and it doesn't need to be surrounded by thought. Yeah. So, yeah. I think a lot of times we know, but then there's a part of us that doesn't want to know. So I used to use a great question for people, my friends that were in relationships. I would say, what is it you know that you don't want to know? Yeah, because a lot of times the head in its agenda, for its agenda to be sort of promoted, it has to be in a state of not knowing a lot of shit. Like, this isn't going to fucking work. Yeah. So I would run into me in the past, like I would go out with this lady, and then she told me, and then I'd be with her in a bar, and then there her husband was, and her first primary boyfriend was. So I'd go home and I'd write an inventory. Does this seem what the inventory would tell me? Do not see this person. I'd still go out and see her. Yeah. And then I got whacked. So I learned. Yeah. So now, what is it I know that I don't want to know? The head doesn't want you to know that you have a whole lot of fucking knowledge. Really. A whole lot of it. So when someone says, oh, they want to talk about their relationship, and I go, what is it you know that you don't want to know? You feel like you should leave, but you don't want to know that because she has money. Yeah. There's all these kind of mixed messages constantly, but deep down there's a knowing. Yeah. And one more, Dave. Hey, Dave. think he fell asleep. Hey, Dave.
I'm here. I'm sorry, I was on
Hey,
mute. I'm
one
just
more, and then we'll go, eh? Hey,
okay,
Jane,
let's
Jane.
wait, Jane. All right.
No, I was just saying hello to Jane.
All right. Does anyone want to? If anyone's got a question, just wave at the screen. I'm looking at you now. So, anyone want one? No.
Oh, that's great. Good.
You're done. All right. Okay.
I'm really done. I'm really cooked.
Yeah. Oh, hold on. James back.
Oh,
Lebowski.
James, I'll take him. All right,
Go
James.
on. There you go, mate. Yeah, go for it, James.
See if I'm unmuted.
You are,
hey, everybody.
mate.
I just wanted you guys to know it's just been a wonderful, wonderful meeting for me right up to this very minute. It's been a great meeting. But I'm going to try to not drag it down, but I just get so inspired listening to you guys. And I really did spend a lot of time in the program trying to get the program as trying to get out of self, basically, trying to apply these principles as the thing that's not capable of applying these principles. And it really was that, then, trying to find some more relief through the course, and then discovering Paul's videos that sort of, I don't know, man, gave me that little shift in orientation where I could see. And now, when I read the big book, I see clearly he's talking about a foreign installment. And when I read the course, I see clearly that it's giving me a description of these two options I have all the time. And I'm just really grateful that I was complicating that stuff so much. I'm just so grateful someone kind of brought it together in a simple way for me. It's really been great. But I thought I had some big wisdom bomb I was going to drop on somebody because they said something and it's totally gone. So you guys are spared that. You guys were spared.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, James. Nice to see you. Hey, I want to say hello to Jim and Trish over there. Jim and Trish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
Unmute.
There's Armpor, I think. I don't know how to say the name. Yes, there. We got Bennett. That was a very nice question. James, always happy to see you. Kerry, nice to see you, Kerry.